Hello.
Amazing
Hello.
when it works.
It's
Amazing when
do
it
not
works.
take it for granted.
No,
as I shove
no.
you forward. Let's see.
Don't shove me forward.
I'll shove you forward, sir. Let's see. Looks like we're working, which is my favorite. You can talk when I don't talk, you know.
Yes, I can talk when you don't talk.
My dad, if I don't speak, my dad just stops talking. That tends to be what happens if I don't sort of.
Well, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Well, we got to spend a quality time with an old friend yesterday.
You did.
Chris
Several
Nichols.
old friends.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
I
right.
thought you were talking about your panel thing.
Well, that was great too.
Yeah.
Two nice things in a row. We taped an episode of our Maltin on Movies podcast, which we will post on Friday, per usual, with Chris Nichols. Chris is the senior editor at Los Angeles Magazine, but he's better known as a man about town.
Yeah.
And he knows more about nooks and crannies and historical places in Los Angeles than any other person.
Loves finding all of the hidden places that exist here.
Mm-hmm. Not just movie locations, far beyond that.
Anything. And it just brings him an incredible amount of joy to share it with people. And most of what he does is free. Right. That's the thing. Most of the events that he takes part in, like, he just really wants to be able to share it. And I was saying to Chris and in the podcast that, you know, our friends really are sort of this way. They just want to share everything. And it's such a gift because you have these collectors. This is their passion. Their passion is not to keep it for themselves. It's not to collect it and then have it in their home so nobody else can see it. The joy comes from having it and then sharing it with everybody.
Yeah.
Which is why, you know, my dad loves showing you his collectibles because it's so much more fun to share them. You know, it's nice to own them, but it's really more fun when you can show somebody.
Right. And yet not everybody feels that way.
Well,
we know people who are hoarders.
There are hoarders as well.
But we don't want to give them any of our attention or time.
There's a crazy for everybody, and that's fine. Whatever works for them. But no, I deeply, deeply love the fact that so many of our friends just have such a blast saying, "Oh my God, I found this and I want to share it with you." You know, as I say, a lot of the joy comes from the finding it and then the sharing it.
We didn't say Happy Easter.
Oh yeah. Happy Passover and Happy Easter. D23 is going to show the World's Fair panel that you hosted last year. We know that. And the reason we know that is because we got to record a special intro for it
introduction
the other day. We got to record it, and that will air before they show it. So I'm excited about that. We got to film in this great old, is it a train station?
No, it was an airport.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
It's so tiny.
Yeah.
Where did planes take off?
Planes were smaller then.
Yeah. Really small. Really small. Anyway, but that was a lot of fun. So I'm excited for people to see that. Unfortunately, they're airing it Thursday and they wanted us to partake in this live chat they're doing. But Thursday is also the opening of the TCM Film Festival. Yep. So we will be there. Have you ever considered showing your movie collection on MeTV's Collector's Call? I didn't know that was a thing. I don't doubt that it's a thing. You know, like a lot of collectors, there's some stuff you share and some stuff you don't. So I think that it would be kind of, yeah. They film a lot of pilots at airports. At airports. Yes.
It's a good play on words.
Yep. What did you think of Sinners? So my dad, I'm going to share because it just made me laugh. My dad showed it in his class on Thursday.
Yep.
And beforehand,
made entirely by USC cinema graduates, led by Ryan Coogler.
Yep.
And Ryan still works with the people that he worked with in school.
Like a lot of people. A lot of people that go to film school tend to work with the people that they met there, which is lovely. And Ryan is a doll. Ryan was actually one of my dad's students. He had my dad as a teacher and has now brought back, I think, all of the films that he's made. Yeah. He's lovely and he's really passionate. But so this is the text that my dad sent to me. Alex is this amazing guy who books all the films for USC in general, not just for the class, but for all the events that they do. But so this is the text. Hi, everyone. Warner Brothers is going to distribute Sinners t-shirts to the class and we'll be in the lobby at 5:30. They also have a truck where they're outfitting people with bejeweled fangs. They'll still be there after the Q&A wrap, so feel free to steer the students there when the class breaks. To which I immediately said to my dad, please go get bejeweled fangs. And why didn't you get bejeweled fangs?
Because they're not just like plastic things you put on for Halloween. They were actually installing them.
Yeah. Now, I don't think that's an excuse for you to not have gotten them, sir.
I do.
But I was very disappointed when my dad came home and did not have fangs in his mouth, as I'm sure you would be as well. I expected more from you, and you failed me. That's all I'm saying.
I'm sorry, but I'm not very sorry.
Yeah, I know you're not. I know you're not sorry. But yeah, so you had it in class. The way
also, I thought it was kind of odd that they were promoting this pretty serious film.
Yeah.
In such a flippant way.
That's all they're doing right now.
Yeah.
If it's all over all the various social medias, they are pushing this film hard. They have the whole cast everywhere. I love Jack O'Connell. I love him. And they've had him absolutely everywhere. But all of the interviews are very lighthearted. Everything they're doing is to make it's supposed to sound fun. Which you were saying is not necessarily the actual vibe of the film.
No.
So the answer to did you like the film, because I kept asking him that, his answer was sort of some of it.
It's several films in one. You get a lot for your money, I must say, because you get one movie for about an hour, which is about twin brothers who have gone off to fight in World War I, we later learn, and have come home and gone to Chicago and had some sort of gangsterish experience in Chicago, apparently.
It's gangsterish.
Yeah. None of this is spoiler stuff. This is all setup stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they go back to their home turf in Mississippi in 1932 and try to buy a barn and open a juke joint. And that's sort of the launch pad for the film. And they're twin brothers, and they're both played by, of course, Michael B. Jordan. But I didn't know that ahead of time. And so I was a little confused. I get a little confused because they're identical, except one has a beard and goatee type beard and mustache. The other doesn't. And the visual effects aspect of it is so seamless that you really, I mean, if seeing is believing, you believe there are two guys there. You don't ever think for a moment, wait a minute, how's that happening? And Sev Ohanian, the producer, who is Ryan and Zinzi Kugler's business partner and producer since Fruitvale Station, was my guest, another former student. And he talked about how they did it, the old-fashioned way, which is to say you mask off half the lens, you shoot the first part with someone else filling in, and then replace him with the second half of the shot. But he said they also had smoke drifting from one half of the frame to the other, and things like that broke that line, that reveal line. Well, some years ago at the Cinefest in Syracuse, New York, they showed a 1917 version of A Tale of Two Cities, which has a dual role in it, and they broke the line in 1917. And if you see The Whole Town's Talking, the John Ford film with Edward G. Robinson, which is a very enjoyable movie, they pulled the same kind of stunt there. Where you think how they're doing this,
but then you don't.
I mean,
honestly, I'm blown away by a lot of the effects I think the Parent Trap, the original Parent Trap, still looks remarkably
Yeah,
good.
sure.
I really am. I'm amazed by so many of the effects. My dad many years ago had Ray Harryhausen come to class and showed the kids. Was it Sinbad or was
Seventh
it?
Voyage of Sinbad.
Yeah, and it's tough because people today, young people especially today, are so accustomed to these
kids.
it's true, these really incredible, and I mean incredible effects.
Yeah, photorealism.
They're used to it, and so sometimes, whether it's something like the original King Kong or Seven Voyages, whatever it is, they can laugh at it because it can
seems primitive.
Yeah, which I understand. I get it. But you sort of have to, and whenever you've introduced one of those types of films, whether it's class or anywhere else, you always sort of go, I need you all to remember, when this happened and how much work goes into it and how incredible it was for the time.
But listen, even Nick Park and his colleagues at Aardman know the value of occasionally having a fingerprint on the clay figures, just to remind you that this is hand done.
Yeah, it's
not a computer manipulating those characters, and so I think they're carrying on a nice tradition.
I absolutely. I mean, look, claymation, all of that, the amount of effort it takes is truly mind blowing. Tim Burton did an exhibit at the LA County Museum of Art, and I went, and you went for opening night. I think you got to go to the opening night of it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and
it's fantastic.
Yeah, it was. And I went with friends later. And one of the things that they had on display were all of Jack's heads.
Yep. That using one of my favorite jargon terms, replacement head animation.
Replacement head. Huh? So they had all these heads on display, and you could see all the different faces of Jack from Nightmare Before Christmas. Whether it's I mean, because again, when I try to explain to people that stop motion is quite literally every single shot is a shot. So it's this, this, to just have someone do that.
Yep.
It's incredible. And the time that goes into it is just mind blowing.
If you get any number of seconds of footage per day, that's a good day.
Yeah. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. Someone's asking, are you excited? Are there any movies? Well, are there any movies specifically that you're excited to see at TCM?
Yes, there are. I'm very excited about the closing night showing of Beau Geste at the Egyptian Theater. It's a silent film that I really love, and it hasn't been in circulation for a long time. And I have friends who are devotees of the much more readily available 1939 remake with Gary Cooper and directed by William Wellman, who's no slouch. And it's an okay film, but it doesn't get the silent film actually gets to me. It wins over my heart. And I'm so glad that they're showing it. And a new restoration with the Montalto Motion Picture Orchestra,
who are great.
They do a great job. Rodney Sauer, their director, has accumulated cue sheets from the silent era.
Wild.
So it's not a score that exists per se, but it is ingredients for a score that he compiles, and they do just a wonderful job.
Well, yeah, I keep with the different. We've had several friends on our podcast recently, and the word that I use over and over again, because it's just the one that applies best, is just passionate. Folks, people who are a part of the Montalto Orchestra, friends of ours who do all of this, it is with love and devotion and dedication, and it's hard. But the end result is one that is so magical, and seeing everything come together. I mean, even just watching this stuff on a big screen with other people, it means so much. And obviously the TCM audience is thrilled by everything. They are there to enjoy every bit of this. So thankfully, their hard work ain't been in vain for nothing. Like it's, the audience is responsive.
Yeah. I want to answer some people who are posting comments here. Yes, TCM is, as we always say when we go to the Telluride Film Festival, it's a weekend of frustration.
Ha!
Because you can't attend everything.
Can't do everything.
And that is extremely frustrating. And you have to just make your choices and enjoy what you get to see.
Yeah.
But the other thing I'm looking forward to, in a big way, is our friend Chapin Cutler, who runs Boston Light and Sound. They do all the projection for the TCM Festival and installations, special installations of equipment, sound, picture, all of that. And they're going to screen VistaVision. They're going to screen 2 feature films. Apparently, they're old Technicolor prints that were sitting in the vault at Paramount. Never got used, if I'm hearing this correctly, because the process was so short-lived as a theatrical process. Why? Because the film goes through, it's like a 70 millimeter sized film, like an IMAX frame. I should have brought down that demo thing I had. Sorry, folks. It goes through the projector horizontally.
Yeah.
Picture a reel of film.
Yeah.
What about that?
Yeah. No, you were talking about it last week. It's always exciting to see this kind of stuff in person.
Yeah.
The only strange overlap that you're having, though, is that AFI is having their big tribute evening Saturday, right?
Yep.
So
for Francis Coppola,
it's just not great timing, but it is what it is. So you will step away from TCM stuff to go with mommy to the AFI tribute to
having changed into a tuxedo.
Exactly. Having switched into the tuxedo, which PS, you should try it on and let's make sure it still fits. You haven't had it. You had it on in February.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. That's pretty close. We should be okay. Someone's asking, speaking of film festivals, are you happy with Sundance Film Festival moving to Colorado? In the nicest way possible, we don't care. And I don't mean that in any sort of a negative way. But nobody will know anything until it happens. You know what I'm saying? So they'll be there for next year. And then 2027 is when they're going to move over to Colorado. And we won't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing until the festival happens and you find out. The trickiest thing with any festival, even one that has been running for this long, is that if you're moving it to a new location, it means that everybody has to learn the new place.
Right.
And that means all of the people that go and all of the people that work there. So, the first year is going to be hard, and probably even the second and the third, just because it's going to take time. Everything, when you get to Park City, Utah, which is where it has been forever, when you get there, everything is ready to go, kind of a thing. Everybody knows their hotels. Everybody knows how the bus works. Everybody knows the airport. Everybody knows how long it takes to get from the airport to Park City. Many people have stayed in the same places over and over and over again. You know which theaters you like.
Yep.
There are some people where the way that they do it. Sorry, I just paused. Yes, Kevin, we just talked about it before you joined us. So it's like, I'm sure it will be fine in the grand scheme. It's just going to have a lot of hiccups until it settles in. And I hope it's good. I hope that it's the right choice. I hope that it's, that's all I can really say. I hope that it's good. I hope it's a good choice. Is Robert Redford still involved with Sundance? I don't know technically if he is. He is.
He issued a statement.
Yeah.
About the move to Colorado.
Yeah,
Springs.
It's still, I don't know how much he does, but but obviously it's still, it was his baby. He's the one that put it there. Yeah, Colorado is a much friendlier state. Well, that's obviously a huge part of the move. I will tell you, one of the funniest experiences is leading into Sundance. So Sundance starts on a Thursday, as almost all festivals do at this point. We used to go to something called the Art House Convergence, and it's in a town just a little further away from
a town with the whimsical
Park
name
City.
of Midway.
Yeah, Midway. And we used to go to that, and it's all of these small theater owners getting together.
And managers.
It's really special, and I miss going. It was an amazing event. But my husband came with us one year, and it was really so. Again, my husband is English. He can drink like a champion. It took him so much to get drunk because of how minimal. I mean, in some places there's no alcohol at all. In places where there is alcohol, the percentage is so low that I swear, I remember I have a photo of him holding this giant stein of beer, and he's just like, nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. It was very funny. Grievous, who just joined us, just to reiterate, we just talked all about Sinners. Ryan Coogler was my dad's student at USC. He has brought back almost all of his films to my dad's class at USC, and he just showed Sinners last week.
And which I sort of liked, but then it goes in these wacky directions that you can't predict.
Yeah.
And can't explain.
Yeah. Well, they say the advertising for it's been very strange, and I don't really understand it. Happy Easter, Leonard. Thanks, Nicholas. Do you think Disney should re-release the Walt Disney? So the reason I'm reading this is because I always tell people that I think probably the two most common questions you get asked is, when are you going to bring the movie guide back? And when are they going to either put the Disney treasures, now that Disney Plus exists, are they going to put them on there? Prior to that, it was, are they going to put them onto Blu-ray or do anything else? The answer is
apparently not.
I don't think that they're ever going to do anything with the Walt Disney treasures. What it would take, like anything else, is the right person would have to get to Disney Plus, love them already, and go, hey, we should do something with these.
Yeah.
Short of that happening.
They need an advocate.
Yeah. Short of that happening, no matter how many times people ask us over and over and over again, I do not know. I cannot imagine anything is going to happen until the right person appears there. Arthur says, you would think Utah would be more amenable to the film festival because of Monument Valley, the setting for so many John Ford Westerns.
Monument Valley actually straddles more than one state.
Yeah. Utah as a state has a lot going on. And it's known for their religiousness. So I'm not surprised. Religiositizes. I'm not surprised that they've made things difficult or that people don't want to be there. I understand both of those pieces. It's only fair. The only problem is that there's some content Disney won't be comfortable airing. Well, the thing is, there's a ton of stuff on Disney Plus, even just stuff that they show. They just add, those, hey, sorry, there's a lot of racism. Hey, sorry, we said some terrible things in this, and usually move right along with it. I'm trying to think, what are you showing? Oh, you can't. I was about to say, what are you showing this week? You can't say that. The opening night for TCM is Thursday. But again, because my dad teaches Thursday nights, what we always do.
It's become an annual ritual.
Yeah, is
where I walk the red carpet.
Yep.
And I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to be there, and I'm happy to participate and talk to an ever shrinking number of media outlets. Yeah. Even at its peak, though, I mean, George Lucas and The Empire Strikes Back is a big draw, I would think. But then I thought that about Cabaret with Liza Minnelli and Joel Grey. I thought that about Oklahoma with Shirley Jones. I thought that about Mary Poppins with Julie Andrews.
That was magic.
And yet the local newscasts, except for George Pinocchio.
God bless George Pinocchio. He's on Channel 7.
He's on KABC.
God bless George Pinocchio. The man. Oh, see, this is the same. When you were on ET, you were able to do this as well, which is every now and then you take one. There's one for the good guys.
Yeah.
It's really tough when the people in charge don't necessarily care about whether it's history or just things that are not super famous movie star stuff, whatever. It's very, very frustrating because you want to say, hey, this is Hollywood. A huge part of Hollywood is the history. So we shouldn't have to ask, especially at least like the local stations, to come through and celebrate this.
And now even Sam Rubin is gone.
I know. Oh,
And
beloved Sam Rubin.
yeah.
He was another one of the good guys where he worked really hard to make sure that, stuff that otherwise might not be shown or might not get attention, he worked to do that.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, this is the same like we're talking about with Disney Plus. There has to be an advocate. George Pinocchio on Channel 7, he's the one that says, I'm going to go cover XYZ. I'm going to go cover a thing that you don't care about because you should care about it. And we're so lucky to have him. We're so lucky to have him.
Yeah.
And he is just...
And he's just a nice man.
He is. He's the nicest. And he really cares. He cares so deeply. Do you think the Academy Museum should do more?
That's too long an answer. It requires too long an answer. But I'm looking forward to TCM for several films. I'm going to introduce two. I'm going to join Mario Cantone, I've never worked with before, to introduce Walt Disney's Cinderella on its 75th anniversary at the El Capitan, which is the flagship Disney theater here in Hollywood. And if you don't know about the El Capitan,
we've talked about it a lot the last few weeks.
Yeah, it was built in the 1920s and sort of jerry-rigged for CinemaScope when they had to do that. And it wasn't run down. It wasn't that, but it needed a freshening up. So that's what they did. They essentially rebuilt the theater, on the bones of the original theater. And they couldn't get National Historic registration because they didn't follow. And they knew that going in.
Yeah.
They said, no, we want to make this comfortable and convenient and, drink holders and things like that. So, but it's a wonderful place.
Yeah.
And the people who populate it, the staff, are like Disneyland cast members.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so if you work for Disney in any capacity, you're called a cast member. It doesn't matter if you're in accounting, you're called a cast member. And so the people that work there, and many of them have been there forever, they really take it to heart. And thinking about the fact that I started going to the El Cap as a little kid, and being blown away by it. And we've gotten to know Rob Richards over the years, who is one of the organists and puts on a fantastic show every time. He takes such pride in this. It is so important to him. Getting to hear the Mighty Wurlitzer, sit in that theater. They have all of these really beautiful screens that go by and curtains. And it's such a,
it's like a multimedia event.
It's fantastic because it really is an experience. And I love that. I really love that. And I love that people can still do that. One of the other fun things, though, is you can actually pay. They have a beautiful marquee outside, gorgeous marquee outside. And that's on Hollywood Boulevard.
A digital marquee.
Yeah. But the whole thing, I mean, like the whole setup of it, it's gorgeous. The neon letters, everything.
Yeah.
You can actually pay to have the sign say things. So you can get a happy birthday to so-and-so. I have friends that do that. And it's pretty neat to have it on Hollywood Boulevard. It says happy birthday, whoever it may be. And I love that they do that as well. Mario has been known to be a riot. He's a cinephile. I think you'll have fun. We've met him at the festival many times over. They just haven't done an event together yet.
Yes. So yesterday we were trying to say I had two fun encounters in a row.
I only had one. I only got one fun encounter. He got two fun encounters.
Let's plug his book. The latest book from
Chris Nichols.
is called Bowlorama, and it's a visual history of bowling alleys.
Yes,
which were a phenomenon.
But that's the thing.
In the post World War II era. It
doesn't sound as if you just say it's a book about bowling alleys. Doesn't really cover what it is. It's about the fact that bowling became the thing. And it was the thing. And so all of these towns across America suddenly had bowling alleys. And then as he was explaining, And then they had to top themselves. And it became
Yeah.
almost like a Las Vegas style situation where they would have a room where people would perform. He was telling us some of the people that recorded live albums at various bowling alleys, and it's big names. He talked about in Denver, Colorado, Walt Disney joined forces with like an insane list of A-list folks to put together
They're all invested in this recreation center,
Yeah.
which included a bowling alley, but
Yeah.
had a cocktail lounge, and
pool, all kinds of stuff. So it's just, the history is incredible. He, like us, loves architecture as well, and of course these different bowling alleys. It's just fascinating. The whole thing's fascinating. So his book is out, Bowlerama. So worthwhile. But again, Chris himself is just, he's a really special person. And he's always happy. Like, he's just joyful
yeah.
and excited. And I love being around him. So we got to do that, which was a blast.
And then
my
wife and I went to Mike Van Eaton's Van Eaton Galleries,
which has moved to a really big location on Ventura Boulevard. It used to be rather small. Now it's in what was formerly a Pier 1 Imports.
Right.
It's now
right
theirs.
next door to the Bookstar, which used to be the Studio City Theater, and which has retained the marquee and the box office kiosk outside. So even though it's not a theater anymore, you still get
it's great looking,
a nice feeling about it.
It's great looking.
And it was a tribute to Jay Ward, and which I would not miss because I am a lifelong Jay Ward fan and aficionado. When I got engaged to my wonderful wife, Alice, I gave her an engagement ring, and she said, "I want to buy you a nice watch." I said, "But I have my Bullwinkle watch." She said, "Yeah, but I want to get you a nice watch." I said, "I have my Bullwinkle watch, and I still have it." In fact, I was standing in the outer office of Jay Ward Productions talking to Jay when one of his artists came and showed him the rendition. Why they gave Bullwinkle an Indian headband, I don't know. But he pointed out that it was a little cluttered, but that perhaps if you were wearing that watch, you didn't really care what time it was.
I mean, really.
Which is a good theory.
It's also, I would say, indicative of everything that we have, which is, this is not very useful, but it's fun.
And then, of course, they had to do a Dudley Do-Right watch, too.
Because you can't go wrong. Logan, do you want to wear a watch? Oh, thank you, Bubby. Do you want to wear a Dudley Do-Right watch? Yeah, you do.
Look. When I was 12 years old, I wrote a fan letter to Jay Ward, the producer of The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle. That was what it was called at the time. Or Rocky and His Friends, I guess, was the original title. And I just fell in love with these cartoons and with their very hip sense of humor, very much a grown-up sense of humor. I mean, it's a lot of silliness too, but who says you can't still appreciate silliness when you grow up?
Oh, God.
And
don't ever want to not be silly.
Only later did I learn who some of the voices were. And much later than that, I got to meet almost all of them. June Foray, who was the voice of Rocky, became a friend.
June was the best.
And a little dynamo is what she was.
Tiny. She was so small. And someone small. I knew her as I was a child, and she looked small to me then. So, yes, Boris and Natasha. Who doesn't love Boris and Natasha? It's somebody's just saying that
the day that I finally understood that Boris Badenov, that name, was a parody of the opera Boris Godunov, was like an awakening, an epiphany.
Whenever those hit, look, when I figured out that it was Kanga and Roo for Winnie the Pooh, I was like, wait a minute, my life is a lie. It was I was shocked with myself, but it was a big one. Albert says, thanks for talking about the El Capitan Theater. So many wonderful memories of watching movies there when I was living in Hollywood. Yeah. One of the coolest things, you were shooting there. I don't remember what it was for. You were shooting something there.
For Reels Channel, I think.
Yeah, it's like 10 or 11 years ago, maybe more than that. And one of the things that they would do, again, they put on a whole show. It's a whole show. So it's not just watching a movie,
Right.
the end. There's a whole show to it. And a lot of times when the movies would end, they'd send out confetti. But because it's Disney, a lot of times it was themed confetti. So for Pocahontas, it had really beautiful leaves on it, different things like that. Well, I was sitting up on the stage.
They made it snow.
Yeah. Oh, well, they do everything.
Yeah.
But I was sitting up on the stage while my dad was, you were filming with the organ. And I looked down and there are these little sort of covering the lights are these little cages. So nothing can, touch them or harm them. But next to them were all these pieces of confetti that had gotten stuck. And I'm looking at it and I'm seeing like a Pirates one and a Pocahontas one and a Little Mermaid one. And I don't know how long they were stuck there. And I also don't know if they've been cleaned out since. But staring at them, it was like having a memory book and going, oh my God, I remember when they did that and that and that and that. And again, things that strike you like that as a kid, things that you remember. And I remember so much of the El Capitan stuff that we got to do. It's the little things.
It was the closest equivalent to going to Radio City Music Hall in its heyday.
Yeah.
Radio City Music Hall being much larger, the shows being much more ambitious.
Yeah.
And bigger productions in every way, in every sense of that word. But this was a nice substitute for that.
Yeah. Well, and as I say, the fact that the outside looks so grand.
Yeah.
So from the minute you're walking up to it, it feels exciting.
Yeah. It's different than going to a mall.
Yeah.
Or a multiplex.
Yeah. The only unfortunate thing is right next door, they had opened what they was it called like Mickey's Soda Fountain or something like that.
Yeah.
It's no longer owned by it's Ghirardelli now. They still do sell merch, but it used to be completely Disney themed in there. And that was so cool. It was beautiful. But thankfully, as I say, at least it still is a little ice cream shop, soda shop.
Yeah.
And so you can still go in there after the movie or whenever you want. But having that, again, it adds to the experience.
Right.
It's sort of like, it's what we miss about where they used to put movie theaters. There used to be bookstores, right? There were bookstores, there were restaurants, record stores. So the whole thing was an experience, and it was, you make an evening of it. So you go to see a movie, or maybe you're waiting for your movie to start ahead of time. So you go into a bookstore and you browse, and maybe you find something you like. A movie lets out, you go and you have ice cream someplace. It's the idea that these are events and that it's meant to be fun and it's meant to be a whole thing. So for me, I'm grateful that a place like the El Capitan exists, because it means you can take your kid or your partner or whoever and say, let's go do this. We're going to see a movie that has an organ playing, has these incredible curtains on stage. That's the thing. There's a whole, even just when the movies are going to start, there's a whole thing that goes on. Even if you don't get the Mighty Wurlitzer organ playing, there's music. It's a whole setup.
You could actually make a whole day of it by going to the Hollywood Museum.
Yes, which we also love and recommend.
On Highland Avenue, just around the corner.
Yes, it's as I say, it's just, I think it's so important that still exists. The reason that places, again, if you live here, you have a spot like the Americana or the Grove, and these are both pretend high streets, what we call high streets in the UK, where you have everything all in one place. And the idea is you go and it's an experience. So you go to the Grove, you have dinner somewhere, you see a movie, you go get ice cream. And it's lit and it's beautiful. And they have this big water feature and they play jazz. And it's just like this lovely little escape that used to exist in real life, that doesn't exist in real life anymore. So I love being able to take somebody to something and sort of go, oh yeah, we're going to have a whole thing. We're going to have a whole time here. What you got?
I got the newly recreated film score to Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein by Frank Skinner.
But you see who recorded it.
Well, yes, of course.
Royal Scottish National Orchestra.
That's right.
That makes it.
William T. Stromberg.
Yep.
Stromberg strikes again. He hasn't done one of these in a while, and it's actually a very good score. And there's a video that may be posted online. I hope it is. It's like a 2-minute long cue of spooky, spooky but not lugubrious or heavy-handed horror movie music.
We don't want anything lugubrious, okay?
Yeah.
Nothing lugubrious.
And the bonus is you get the score for Abbott and Costello Meet the Keystone Cops, which was pieced together by Herman Stein, William Lava, the incredibly prolific William Lava, and a young Henry Mancini.
Has he done anything? Henry Mancini? I love this illustration on the inside here. It's really cute. There you go. You can see it.
Anyway, this is available at record stores. I don't know, but you probably have to go online.
Yeah,
probably have to go online, but it's worth going online. And Intrada is the label.
Awesome. Do you think Judy Garland and James Mason would have won the Oscars had the restored version of A Star Is Born from the 80s been released in 1954?
No, I don't think it would have changed the vote at all. They were great in the shorter version. They're great in the longer version. The longer version gives them more opportunities to show off their skills as actors. It's true, but I don't know that it would have changed the tide of voting that year. Collecting cells is great fun. A very expensive hobby it's becoming now.
Yeah.
But only once have I had an opportunity to get one of these, which was sold through the Courvoisier galleries. I know it's filthy.
So deeply
it's filthy.
Dirty. 1 second. I love this. This is one of my favorite things. Whenever I go in your office as a little kid, this is one of my favorite things.
It's a shadow box simulating the multiplane camera effect that Walt Disney and his team devised.
It's quite hard to see because of the way that it reflects light, but
it's on more than one level.
Yeah.
That you have Winkin, Blinkin, and Nod from the silly symphony of the same name.
Hence, multiplane. Multiplane painting is a new technique of hand painting on separate pieces of glass. These glass panes add mystery and depth to the picture. Through these handmade multiplane paintings, we are able to recreate the finest examples of Disney's art in all its original depth of perspective. Just as the folklore and pictures of the past have remained to become heirlooms, so these authentic Disney items are today collected as one of the most significant art forms of this generation because of Disney's outstanding contribution in his creation and development of animated films. Produced by Courvoisier, San Francisco. The title of this picture is Winkin, Blinkin, and Nod Playing in the Clouds.
Isn't that neat?
Mm-hmm.
They turn up every now and then.
Yeah. I always love this one. It even has, and God, that's filthy. Oh, it's falling. It has some fluff in it. Is that meant to be a cloud?
I guess.
Yeah. It moves now. Fun fact. Now it's falling down. There's a little bit of floof in it. Can you see?
Yeah.
Here.
Here is an item that I don't know. I know what a blotter looks like, an ink blotter, and we know that they use that as advertising space. We know that there are all different kinds of printed items that were distributed. This is an odd size. I don't know how this was used. It's not big enough to be a trolley ad.
Mm-hmm.
It's too big to be a blotter, but it has a caption at the bottom which verifies that this is the correct size it was meant to be. But it's Mae West.
It says, when you come up, you'll find old gold. Mae West.
That is when you come up and see her sometime.
That's right.
nowadays, as you certainly know, movie props are all the rage.
What's it stuck to? There you go.
Yeah. I had a friend who passed away some years ago, named Don Feld. His name was Don Feld, but he signed as a costume designer who signed his work, Don Feld, and he worked at all the major studios, and he apparently was, what would be the euphemistic term, light fingered. He took things home that perhaps he
light fingered.
Yeah.
Wow.
Didn't have absolute permission to take. So that makes me a fence, I guess. But he gave them to me. I didn't buy them.
You're a fence. I like that.
And this is an odd movie prop because you can't find it in the movie. I've watched this movie repeatedly, looking for evidence of this.
And how'd that go for you?
Not well.
Not well.
But this is a menu for Mildred's in Mildred Pierce with Joan Crawford. And read some of the sample items.
Mildred's Drive-In. Desserts. This is the dessert menu specifically. Green apple pie, 10 cents. Mildred's lemon meringue, 15 cents. French apple, 10 cents. With ice cream, 15 cents. Pitted cherry.
Yes.
Strawberry shortcake with whipped cream, 20 cents. Mildred's hot fudge sundae, 20 cents. At night, please flash lights for service.
As you would have to at a drive-in. You know, a drive-in. So that's allegedly from Mildred Pierce. That's how I would, if I was listing it somewhere,
yeah,
I would say
allegedly
from
mostly
Mildred
from,
Pierce.
Probably from. Alan says, I see that you were presenting a showing of the Edward Arnold film Diamond Jim.
Yep.
Can you talk about the film? Also, I see it's programmed opposite a showing of To Catch a Thief in VistaVision. Are you mad at that scheduling?
It's always going to be opposite something. You know?
Yeah.
It's always going to be opposite something else. And so I can't I can't complain or hold a grudge.
I mean, you can, but why?
Yeah, but why bother?
Yeah.
I'm very pleased that's my choice, Diamond Jim. Charlie Tavish, the head of programming at TCM.
They usually let him pick one or two to share.
So I've done it for several years now on mid-Sunday afternoon. I think it's 12:30 p.m. on Sunday. And I know for a fact that Universal Pictures has a perfect 35 millimeter print of this film that doesn't get shown and it isn't available on home video. And I haven't seen it in a long, long time. So even if no one else shows up, I'm going to have a good time.
You open the door, it's just you.
Edward Arnold did 3 or 4 biographical pictures in a row. He played Johann Sutter in Sutter's Gold. He played Big Jim Fisk in, I think, in Toast of the Town. And he reprised his role as Diamond Jim Brady in the Alice Faye musical Lillian Russell. And Lillian Russell here, I believe, is played by Benny Barnes. But Jean Arthur, it has 2 leading ladies, Benny Barnes and Jean Arthur. Jean Arthur, this was a momentous year for her, 1935. Like Carole Lombard, she'd been around. She'd been on the scene. She'd been in movies. She'd gotten good billing in movies. She'd gotten publicity stories about her in fan magazines. But she hadn't found that role that would, change everything, the way Carole Lombard did with 20th Century in 1934. It's like, where's this girl been all this time? And the same happened for Jean Arthur, I think, partly with The Plainsman, where she plays Calamity Jane opposite Gary Cooper. And suddenly people took notice of her, as they should have all along. And I remember certain scenes from the film very well. And I honestly didn't remember that it was written by Preston Sturges. who had also just done Only Yesterday at Universal. So it's a Sturgis film too, not directed by him, directed by Eddie Sutherland, who directed everybody. I met him once. John McCabe, the erudite author of the great book Mr. Laurel and Mr. Hardy, interviewed Eddie Sutherland after a screening of The Flying Deuces with Laurel and Hardy at the old Huntington Hartford Museum in New York. And afterwards, I got to just barge up towards the man and shake his hand, tell him I liked his work. He worked with everybody. He directed W.C. Fields. He directed an awful lot of the top drawer comics of that time. He seemed, I must say, to my youthful eyes, humorless. But that's just a useful observation. He may have been a laugh riot, for all I know.
For all you know. But for all you know for now.
And he was married for a time to Louise Brooks, Hot Dog. So, Eddie had something going on.
Right. Do you think Kit Parker will do one more Charlie Chase DVD so that we can have digital copies of Limousine Love, Movie Night, and Charlie's feature Modern Love?
I don't know.
When's the last time you talked to Kit?
But Kit, well, we've emailed.
Yeah.
He knows that I am
devotee.
Eager. Yeah, he knows that I'm eager, drooling to have a copy of Limousine Love, which is a hilarious Hal Roach short, late silent short that Robert Youngson excerpted in his feature film Four Clowns. And that's how I've seen it in abridged form. It is great. And one of his funniest silent shorts. And I sure hope there's a day when it will be available.
Yeah. How long have you known Kit?
Forever.
Yeah.
Of course, I was on the other coast.
Yeah.
So we corresponded at first and then finally did get to meet. He was up in the Carmel Valley.
Yeah.
And his father, Al Parker, was a very talented and successful illustrator, magazine illustrator, and who used to illustrate Kit's catalogs in a very offbeat, in his signature style. And it's like, why does this catalog, instead of having movie stills, have these drawings, these renderings of the stars? Well, it's because it was his dad. It was his dad's work. I
love that.
Dad is very much respected.
This person's asking about, it says, did you enjoy the biopic Stan and Ollie? Well, this is actually one that we talk about quite a lot, especially with our friends, but also it's come up just in conversation here. So we love Laurel and Hardy in this house. Again, I'm born on Stan Laurel's birthday, which is a big deal to us. I've watched them, I think, my entire life. For you, it's pretty close to that.
Yep.
And I would say they're two of your favorite characters, actors, whatever the hell, however you want to phrase it. One of the things about them is as soon as we see them, we smile and laugh. Just on sight.
Yeah. Even their still photos.
Yeah.
Their still photos were very carefully posed. The guy who shot them at the Hal Roach studio was named Stax, S-T-A-X. I don't know what his real name was.
You don't need to know. His name was Stax.
Yeah. But they took care. And so when they've just completed a gag or something, he'd say, hold it. And they kind of tweak it a little bit and get a perfect rendition of why that moment was funny in the film.
Yeah.
So it's funny in the still photo too.
Even to me, Stan Laurel had such a warm face, by which I mean, like when you look at a picture of him, there's a lot of sweetness that comes through. Anytime I look at a picture of him, it just feels that. And Oliver Hardy, him too. But there was just something about Stan Laurel. I think Stan Laurel really appealed to kids. As a kid growing up watching him, he appealed more. Yeah. Because he just had this sort of gentle clownness about him.
And he would cry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. The whole thing. So when we were going to see that movie, We were nervous, of course. And then you watch this absolutely incredible film. John C. Reilly and Steve Coogan.
They're transcendent.
I can't even begin.
They're transcendent in those roles.
You know, and they were so smart as well with how they did the makeup, because in both cases, you didn't think about it, notice it. It was never distracting, which is saying a lot, because especially for John C. Reilly, he had a lot on, physically and on his face. But then they were so clever with how they did Steve Coogan's makeup, where it was just mostly the ears and then a flattening of the chin. So clever, so thought through. We thought it was amazing, and we loved it, though it was sad, and it's meant to be sad. The problem that I had with it, and I've said this from the beginning, is that because so many, specifically young people, but not necessarily even young, middle-aged people, are not familiar with them, I wish that they would have done like 2 parts. I wish they would have done a movie about the rise of Laurel and Hardy, because it's like they were so huge and so popular and so funny, so deeply funny. And the two of them getting together to have this Brit with this, you know, Georgia, you know, Southern peach of a guy.
You would never, if you were casting them, you would have said, well, their voices don't match.
No, nothing about them matches. I mean, that's the whole point. You know, they are these two opposites in every way. But then they come together and they're magic. And so I wish that there would have been a movie showing that first, because otherwise, if you're watching Stan and Ollie, if you're watching that film, it's the sad side of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's the sad part of them on the other side when it's coming down and everything is going away. And, you know, so as much as I really enjoy that film, though we have friends that hate it, we have Laurel and Hardy friends who do not like it at all.
Yeah.
I think it's incredible. I just wish that if we were going to give the two of them attention, that we would have given them attention for how it began and how brilliant they were, as opposed to necessarily focusing on the end.
I saw John C. Reilly at some event, and I went over to him and I said, when I looked at you in that film, I didn't see you at all. I only saw Oliver Hardy. And I spent my whole life watching Laurel and Hardy. I mean, that's how convincing he was.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a knockout. He's a knockout. John C. Reilly is so talented. I mean, in general.
Well, yes.
John C. Reilly is so talented.
Great actor.
And so nervous around people, which kind of always makes me laugh. He is not someone, I met him years ago at a Spirit Awards thing. And I went over and I said, I love you. And I love when you sing. You have such a beautiful voice. I hope you sing more. And he sort of, I think I was unassuming enough that it didn't frighten him, but he was sort of like, oh, I'm really glad you feel that way. Thanks so much. You know, he's just not sort of an out there person, which added to the way that he was able to portray Oliver Hardy, who is this big person, big, you know, big person, big charisma, all that. But yeah, so what did you guys see the film and did you like it? Were you fans of it? Victoria saying his performance was a revelation. I had no idea. No, really, both of them. It's, as I say, and Steve Coogan too, where a lot of people know Steve Coogan for doing these really big over the top things.
But it's like they were channeling.
No, incredible. Absolutely incredible. Wish John did a biopic of Roy Clark instead of that parody of Walk the Line. You know, it's tough. He's been in a number of sort of ridiculous comedies, and he is really, I mean, he is so funny. He has that timing. But I think that's part of it, is that he can do so many different kinds of things. You know, he's one of the best things in Chicago, which is not a movie I like, but he's so good in it. You know, when he sings Mr. Cellophane, that's one of the only performances in the film that is true to that character, to what it's supposed to be, you know? And it's a beautiful song. And I loved hearing him sing it because it's supposed to be heartbreaking. Mr.
Yeah.
Cellophane is supposed to break your heart. So I get that very much.
Whereas the rest of that movie just broke my spirit.
No, please. I can't. I'll tell you, this is actually my mom and I, one of our very favorite musicals of all time is Gypsy. Gypsy is playing on Broadway right now, and it's a very different style of Gypsy. You have Audra McDonald, one of the greatest performers that we have, hands down, voice acting, everything. I have never seen her as a Mama Rose. I don't get her as a Mama Rose, but whatever. And the clips that my mom and I have watched from this version of the show, we don't like it. It's not for us because we know and love that the real, whether it's the Rosalind Russell film or it's Ethel Merman and that original album.
Yeah. Not to say that other people can't do it.
No. And that's the thing is it's not, I would never say, oh, don't go see Gypsy on Broadway. By all means, go see Gypsy on Broadway. It's not for me. But, it's like you can still appreciate people doing different kinds of things. And that's all right. What do you think of the Star Wars celebration going on? So they're saying, what are your thoughts on Star Wars Celebration going to Los Angeles in 2027? I can't even begin to imagine what it'll be here. Gray is in Japan with it, or she just came home because they just had this absolutely massive Star Wars Celebration in Japan, and Disney flew everyone out.
Oh boy.
Like everybody. It's mind-blowing how many people they brought out there. One of our dear friends, Gray, she got to be a part of it, and it is like it's insane. So the fact that it'll be here means that it'll sort of I can't even begin to imagine the scale.
Yeah, you're not starting at zero here. You're starting
at like 187, and it's just I can't even begin to imagine. I mean, there are people here who wear Wookiee outfits and stormtroopers uniforms on a regular basis. So none of the critics had the balls to pan the new Gypsy. It's a train wreck. Well, here's the thing, Craig. I don't like what I've seen of it, but again, I understand.
And we love Audra McDonald.
That's and they all everybody in it seems good, I just say it's not my Gypsy. And that's sort of what we've all taken to sort of, when you show somebody certain things, I understand. This always came up when I was younger. I understand that you may feel like Jurassic Park is the greatest movie of all time. And for you, it is. And that's great. When I was a kid and that movie was out, I didn't see that movie because I was usually watching old movies with my parents. So I can watch it now and really, really love it. I think it's a great film, but I'm never going to love it the way that you love it because you've loved it since you were 7 or whatever it is. In the same way that I love Laurel and Hardy. I have grown up watching them. I love them so much. I understand that if I show them to you, and if you haven't seen them before, you may like them.
Yeah.
But like that was part of the thing of watching that movie is as soon they do a bit that's a famous bit where they're in a hospital room.
Yeah.
The second that shot appeared, before they'd done anything, my mom and dad and I were laughing.
Yeah.
Because we knew what was coming. We were laughing already because we know the bit. And so again, it's like, well, that's why you can't compare things for people. And you have to try to show them without bias if you can.
Right.
And
there's some things that if you're not introduced to them as a child or as an adolescent, you can't catch up. You miss that train.
Yeah.
It's just
it doesn't mean that you can't like something. It just means that the way you like it is a little different.
Yeah.
Because again, it's like my husband loves Jurassic Park more than anything. That is his favorite movie. He loves it so much. I like it a lot. But, my husband as a little kid, that is the movie that was his favorite. And so for him, it always will be. It's stuff like that, that kind of a thing. Jim is asking if we celebrated Superman Day this week. Didn't know there was such a thing, but
I read that yesterday was National Garlic Day.
Oh, please. I look at things sometimes and I go, what in the actual... It was like National Unicorn Day the other day, and I got a bunch of texts, and I was like, I'm glad that you all enjoy these random holidays. Jenny says, we always watch The Life of Brian this holiday weekend. Understood. Jonathan says his favorite Easter movie is Veggie Tales, an Easter Carol, which sounds adorable. Matt is saying, Easter challenge, do you have a favorite movie that involves candy or eggs? Alien is on my short list, he says. I can't help the first thing I think is Willy Wonka, because I don't know what kid could watch that and not want to do all of the things. You can lick wallpaper. You can eat something and it changes flavors in your mouth. I mean, I think it's, again, seeing that at a young age, especially, I don't think that anything really tops that for you.
No.
You know, than to go,
No.
Oh my God, what do you mean?
And
My imagination.
I just watched it again recently.
Holds up in every way.
Holds up.
Yep.
Absolutely. 100%.
Happy Sunday, Leonard and Jesse and Daisy. Thank you so much. Just rewatched 2 1980s comedies that I love, Diner and Serial. What do you think of these films?
I'm a fan of Diner, but my memory of Serial, which I saw, is a little fuzzy.
Arthur's asking if we have ever met George Foreman.
No.
I did once at some event briefly. I did own multiple George Foreman grills. I don't know if that counts. I did like that. It's the Easter Beagle, Charlie Brown. That's right, Frank. Again, people always ask us if we have any movies that we watch during holidays. Well, part of it, again, Jewish, so we don't really do very much for Easter. Easter parade is usually on, and there's never a bad time for that, right? You're never going to say no. But other than that, yeah, sort of nothing specific that we think of.
There's it that to that point, the cartoon Easter Yeggs with Bugs Bunny, which it's
a great name.
An old favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Old favorite.
Well, there's just never a bad time. There's never ever a bad time for Bugs Bunny, and I'm always sort of amazed. Mickey Mouse, original Mickey Mouse, something that I do find interesting is that early Mickey Mouse, he was grouchy. Mickey was not
he was sharp edged.
Yeah, he was grouchy to me.
Yeah, he was not necessarily lovable.
No, he was not warm and fuzzy, which is why it's so funny that he became of the Fab Five that they have. Donald took over sort of being angry all the time, and Mickey became that sort of like, everything's great. But it's funny to think about sort of at the same time having a Mickey and then having a Bugs, because Bugs is almost like the alternative. Bugs is sassy.
Well, no, but Walt provided the alternative, Donald Duck.
Yes, but you know what I mean.
The first angry cartoon character.
Yes, yes. Though, as I said, I think Mickey got angry a lot. I always felt that Mickey was pissed off a lot early on. But you're not wrong. To have a character like Bugs Bunny, where he's so funny and somehow for kids, but not for kids. Like, I think that's sort of like you start with Mickey Mouse, and then as you get older, you go, oh, Bugs Bunny is hilarious. And like it starts to click for you, You go, this Bugs Bunny guy, I like him. I'm a fan of this.
I just showed my class Long-Haired Hare.
Oh, never a bad time.
Which I love.
Never a bad time.
Starts with Bugs singing, "What do they do on a rainy night in Rio?"
That's so good.
How can you go wrong?
You can't. The answer is you can't.
You can't.
You can't. God, I love all of it. Well, Fred, we will not be with you next week because it is the TCM Film Festival, but we should be back in action the week after that.
We'll have recovered by then.
Yeah, hopefully. If you are coming to TCM, please say hi. We're always around, and you'll either see me or my mom or my dad. Somebody of us will be there, and we're excited to see you. So everybody be safe. Say we won't be here next week because it's TCM, but we'll be back after that. So
take care and be kind.